Hi, my name is Dana Scallo, and today we're going to be making beer, or ale, otherwise known as jungle juice. Let me show you some of the ingredients that we're going to need to make this today. So the first thing we're going to need is a pot of about 3/4 of a gallon of water. We're going to be making a pineapple ginger turmeric ale today, so I've got some turmeric. I've got about 1 pineapple. I've got about 6 to 8 ounces of ginger. And I also have a little bit of this ale yeast that I purchased online. It has to be specifically ale yeast. I like Belgian ale yeast. It has a good flavor. And I need a pound of sugar for this recipe. And I just happen to have some cane and some dark brown, so that's what I'm going to use. So this is a fairly simple recipe. You can use any kind of fruit, any kind of herbs that you want to. Just make sure that you know that it all eventually has to fit into a gallon jug, unless you have 2 gallons. And you'll also need a good funnel and a bubbler that has the fitting to your particular opening of your glass jug. And this has a hole in it. I would show you, but it has water in it, so okay, you can see the hole. And you fill it up with water up to the lines that it specifies, because what's happening is there's yeast all over us, all over the air, everywhere. And we have this yeast, and we want this yeast to grow and ferment our beer. We don't want all of the yeast in the atmosphere in our brew, because it's going to end up tasting like vinegar. So you put the water in the bubbler where the line is, so that if the yeast tries to get in, it can't get in to your system. It will stay on the surface. Also, fruit flies, if it's summertime for you, fruit flies will try to get in here, and they will make it down, but they won't get, and they'll just get to the water and they won't get any further. So it's another good reason to have your bubbler on. Now, before I got started with anything, I prepped everything really well. And what that means, basically, is you want to clean your jug really, really well. You want to wash it with soap and water. Then you want to put about 1/4 cup of hydrogen peroxide, or like a tablespoon of bleach. I suggest hydrogen peroxide, it's safer. And water, and you just swish it all around and you get it all in there. And what you're doing is you're killing any yeast that's in the jug at that time. Now, I have compromised it a little bit because it's not covered right now. So let me just cover it. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so I've turned on my flame and I've got my water. It's cold right now, but it's gonna boil, and we're gonna add all of our ingredients except for the yeast. Oops. Put in the pineapple, put in the ginger, putting in a 1/2 tablespoon of turmeric. For me, that's just more for its medicinal purposes. And then I'm going to put in approximately 1 pound of any kind of sugar. It can be white, can be brown, could be even some kind of, it could be honey, it could be any kind of sugar. I recommend just for the first time, sticking with regular old white sugar, because you never know. The brew process is a little strange, but it should work out. I'm going to give it a nice mix. We're going to let it come to a complete, full, rolling boil. Now, a couple things to consider with ale beer is that regardless of what you put in the beer at the beginning, the chance of you getting a lot of that flavor once the brew has fermented and you're drinking it is pretty slim. I've used all kinds of fruits, blueberries, I've used roses, I've used pineapple, I use guava, I use lilikoi, I use frozen cherries, I've used any, you can use anything you want to. But typically at the end, whatever fruit you put in is going to be a real subtle flavor. So don't worry too much about that. Now at the end, when you're drinking it and you're like, you know, I really wanted it to have more of a pineapple flavor, add a little pineapple juice to it and you'll get your pineapple flavor. But typically what I find with this style, which I call jungle juice, is that it kind of tastes more like a mixed cocktail than it does like a beer. But the benefit of making it out of ale yeast is it takes 1 month to ferment, so you get it pretty quickly. You can make wine the same way, only it takes a full year for the yeast to eat up the majority of the sugars in the wort, which is what this is called before it is fermented by the yeast. So that's why I like to use Belgian ale yeast. I like the flavor that it imparts to the brew. I like the quickness of it. And it's also good for me here because I live in Hawaii, so it's relatively warm. So that particular yeast likes a warmer environment. So if you're on the mainland, you probably would want to do this in the summertime. If you want to do a beer in the wintertime, similar style, you can. I would recommend using a Pilsner yeast, and you can follow their directions on the yeast bag or do some research as to how much yeast you end up using per gallon. This is really, this little packet, I've already used it twice. You only need about 7 grams per gallon, which is just like, it's like a half a teaspoon. So this goes really, really far. And you might say, oh, that's not enough, but it works. Believe me, it works. And then they multiply. And you'll see it bubbling up, and it'll look all like soda pop inside while it's brewing. So once our wort has come to a full rolling boil for at least a minute, we're going to turn it off, and we're not going to do anything. We're just going to let it sit for around 6 hours, or until the temperature of the liquid has become like 90 degrees. Around it will feel when you put it in like nothing, because it's like more like body temperature type. That's a little lower obviously, but you want it to be like really low body temperature, like the kind of water you would put a baby into. And then you can add your 1/4 teaspoon of your yeast, cover it back up, and let it sit for like 4 hours. What I usually do is I'll start my brew in the afternoon, I'll bring it to a boil, turn it off, and I'll just live my life, go to bed, maybe wake up in the middle of the night if I have to use the restroom and check the temp, and if at that time it's good to go, I'll add my yeast. Or I'll just wait until the morning because it is warm here. It's not going to get super cold. You just kind of want it not to be like cold. What you can also do if you want to go to bed, wake up in the morning, say, it's a little cool, turn on the heat on the stove for about a minute or two while mixing it, and get it up to that 80 degrees is about optimal, 80-90 degrees. And then turn it off and add your yeast right then. It's great if you have a thermometer, the kind that you can put in liquid. If you don't, the finger method is fine. It's got to feel almost like you're putting your finger into nothing, like ambient room temperature. And then you can add your yeast and let it sit, like I said, for about 4 hours, and then strain it off and pour it with a funnel. You can put a strainer on top of this. One of the benefits of a tiny house, everything's within arm reach. So you put your strainer on it, you got your whole setup here. Strain it into your thing, your glass jug. And this will probably get full, so you might have to empty it like once while you're straining it in. And just be careful because it does get a little bit wobbly, so you just want to make sure that you're taking your time and go nice and slow. And then once you have put it in your jug, make sure your bubbler has the water in it. Put your bubbler on it and store. I put it on top of my refrigerator and let it sit for about a month. It's a good idea to taste it after about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. see how strong it is. It's going to depend on your the temperature of the air around it. If it's really warm, if it's been like a really warm 3 weeks, it's going to brew up really fast, and then you can just drink it. If you want to have brew around all the time, make this, wait 2 weeks, get another jug, another bubbler, and make another batch. And then while you're drinking this one, your other one is brewing, and then you always have a steady supply, depending on how much you like to drink, of ale. And one of the things I've noticed when I make it by homemade like this is I'm the kind of person, like, I'll get a hangover really easily and I can't even drink very much. So when I drink my own brew, I don't get a hangover at all unless I got like totally wasted, which I don't really do. And I even have gotten totally wasted off of it, and I was feeling okay the next day. A little dizzy, but not like you would if you drank like gin or vodka or something from the store. I think it has something to do with the preservatives that this doesn't have in it, and the stuff at the store does. I don't know, you'd have to do your research. But that's the only thing I can really think of. So guys, that's basically how you make ale beer. It's very simple, it's very delicious, and one of the good things about the fermentation process is that it actually imparts nutrition. It raises its nutritional value as it ferments. So when you make it at home like this with the herbs and the fruits that you like, you are actually doing your body a favor and enjoying a nice buzz at the same time. I'll be posting below the recipe for this ale beer. If you have any questions, you can write to me and I will answer them as quickly as I can. Good luck in your beer making and have a wonderful day. Aloha.